The November rain hammered against the windshield as Emily Patterson sat in her decade-old Honda Civic, parked outside the Bluebird Cafe on Nashville's Hillsborough Pike. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles had gone white, and her breath came in short, uneven bursts that fogged up the glass. Inside her worn leather messenger bag sat another rejection letter, the 14th this year, from yet another record label that had praised her voice but ultimately passed on signing her. 28 years old, and she was running out of time. At least, that's what her father, Robert Patterson, kept reminding her during their increasingly tense phone calls back to their family home in Bowling Green, Kentucky. "You've given it a good run, Em," he'd said last week, his voice heavy with concern and barely concealed impatience. "But maybe it's time to think about coming home, getting your teaching certificate like we talked about. There's no shame in having a backup plan." But it wasn't a backup plan to Emily. It felt like surrender. She wiped the condensation from the window and stared at the neon sign of the legendary venue where so many careers had been launched. She'd performed there twice in the past 3 years, each time pouring every ounce of herself into original songs she'd written in her cramped studio apartment. The audiences had loved her. Critics had called her authentic and refreshingly raw. But love and praise didn't pay the rent, and authenticity didn't fill the void that grew larger each time another door closed in her face. Emily's phone buzzed in the cup holder. She glanced down to see a text from her roommate, Jessica Brennan. "Table 12 is asking for you." "Where are you?" "Right. Work." The restaurant where she'd been waiting tables for the past 4 years. The place that kept her afloat, while she chased a dream that seemed to slip further away with each passing month. She checked the time on the dashboard. 2:47 p.m. Her shift had started at 2. "Damn it," she muttered, starting the engine. The Civic coughed to life, and she pulled out into Nashville traffic, the rain turning the city into a blur of gray and brown. By the time she rushed through the back door of the Harvest Kitchen, her hair was plastered to her face, and her white shirt was spotted with rain. Jessica looked up from where she was rolling silverware, her expression somewhere between sympathy and exasperation. "Danny's been looking for you," Jessica said quietly, nodding toward the kitchen. "He's not happy." Emily's stomach dropped. Danny Rodriguez, their manager, was usually understanding about her occasionally chaotic schedule, but she'd been pushing it lately. Last month, she'd missed 2 shifts to drive to Memphis for a showcase that had gone nowhere. The month before, she'd been late 3 times because of morning recording sessions she'd paid for out of pocket. "Emily," Danny's voice came from the kitchen doorway, firm but not unkind. "Office. Now." She followed him past the industrial stoves and prep stations where line cooks worked with practiced efficiency, barely glancing up as she passed. Danny's office was barely bigger than a closet, with a desk covered in invoices and scheduling sheets, and a single window that looked out onto the alley dumpsters. He sat down heavily and gestured for her to do the same. "Look," he started, running a hand through his graying hair. "You're one of my best servers. Customers ask for you specifically. But Em, I can't keep doing this. You're talented, everybody knows that. But I've got a business to run, and I need people I can count on." "I know," Emily said quickly, her voice tight. "Danny, I'm sorry. There was something I needed to take care of, and—" "I've heard all the excuses," he interrupted, though not harshly. "And I get it. I really do. When I was your age, I wanted to be a chef, not a restaurant manager. Had dreams of opening my own place. But life happens, Emily. Bills happen. Reality happens." He paused, studying her face. "I'm not firing you. Not yet. But this is your last warning. One more unexcused absence or unexplained lateness, and I'll have to let you go. I can't be fairer than that." Emily nodded, swallowing against the lump in her throat. "Thank you. It won't happen again." "I hope not," Danny said, his expression softening slightly. "Now get out there and charm Table 12. They've been waiting for you." The rest of her shift passed in a haze of forced smiles and automatic efficiency. Emily could read orders, pour drinks, and make small talk while her mind was elsewhere. It was a skill she'd perfected over the years. But today felt different, heavier. The rejection letter in her bag seemed to radiate weight, pulling at her with gravitational force. By the time her shift ended at 9, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets gleaming under the streetlights. Emily walked to her car slowly, her feet aching in the cheap sneakers she'd been wearing since the spring. The November air had turned cold, and she pulled her jacket tighter around herself. Her phone rang as she unlocked the car door. Her mother, Linda Patterson. "Hey, Mom," Emily answered, trying to inject energy into her voice. "Sweetheart, how are you?" Her mother's warm Kentucky drawl was both comforting and painful. "Your father mentioned he talked to you last week. He didn't upset you too much, did he?" "No, Mom. He's just being practical. He worries, that's all." There was a pause. "We both do. Are you eating enough? Are you warm enough? That apartment of yours?" "Is fine, Mom. I'm fine." Emily closed her eyes, leaning against the car. "Really?" But Linda Patterson knew her daughter too well. "Emily Grace, you don't sound fine. What happened?" And somehow, in the darkness of that parking lot, with the smell of rain and exhaust in the air, Emily found herself telling her mother everything. The rejection letter, Danny's warning, the suffocating feeling that she was running in place, burning through her 20s while everyone else moved forward with their lives. "Come home for Thanksgiving," Linda said when Emily finally stopped talking. "Just for a few days. Get some of my pot roast in you. Sleep in your old bed. You don't have to decide anything right now, baby. But you need a break." "Maybe," Emily said, though they both knew she wouldn't. She couldn't afford to take time off work, and more importantly, leaving Nashville, even for a few days, felt like admitting defeat. After saying goodbye, Emily sat in her car for a long time, watching the last customers leave the Harvest Kitchen. Through the windows, she could see Danny and the night crew cleaning up, preparing for tomorrow. There was something comforting about the routine, the predictability. Maybe her father was right. Maybe it was time to let go of the dream and embrace reality. She pulled the rejection letter from her bag and read it one more time under the dome light. The words blurred together, but one line stood out. "While we appreciate your unique voice and songwriting ability, we don't feel your style aligns with current market trends." Current market trends. Code for, you're not commercial enough, not cookie-cutter enough, not willing to compromise enough. Emily folded the letter carefully and tucked it back into her bag. Then she started the car and drove home through the quiet Nashville streets, past the honky-tonks on Broadway, where tourists stumbled from bar to bar, past the recording studios where tomorrow's stars were being manufactured, past the dreams she'd once believed were within reach. Meanwhile, 15 miles away in a gated community in Franklin, Reba McEntire sat at her kitchen island, staring at her phone. The email had arrived that afternoon, and she'd read it at least 20 times since then, each time hoping the words would somehow change. "Dear Reba," it began, "we hope this message finds you well. The Grand Ole Opry would be honored to have you as part of our Legends of Country tribute show on December 15th. We're celebrating the artists who built the foundation of country music, and your presence would be invaluable." On the surface, it was an honor, a recognition of her decades-long career, her numerous awards, her place in country music history. But Reba couldn't shake the feeling that it was also something else, a gentle suggestion that her time had passed. that she belonged to history rather than the present. She was 68 years old, though most days she didn't feel it. But the industry certainly treated her that way. Radio play for her recent singles had been minimal. Streaming numbers were down. Her last album, while critically praised, had sold a fraction of what her earlier work had moved. The message was clear. Country music was young now, fresh-faced and TikTok ready, and there wasn't much room for legends who refused to fade quietly into the background. "You reading that email again?" The voice came from the doorway, where Reba's manager, Patricia Caldwell, stood with 2 glasses of wine. Patricia had been with her for 23 years, through marriages and divorces, career highs and lows. And she knew Reba better than almost anyone. "Can't seem to stop," Reba admitted, accepting one of the glasses. "What do you think it means?" "Really?" Patricia settled onto the stool next to her, considering the question. She was a sharp woman in her late 50s, with silver-streaked black hair always pulled back in a neat bun, and an expression that could freeze a record executive at 20 paces. But her dark eyes were warm as she looked at her longtime client and friend. "I think it means they want you on that stage because you belong there," Patricia said carefully. "But I also think you're right to be cautious. The industry's changing, Reba. It's not the same world we conquered 30 years ago." "I know that," Reba said, taking a sip of wine. "I see these young artists coming up, and they're so talented, so hungry. But it's different now. Everything's about image and social media presence and manufactured moments. There's no room for, I don't know, authenticity anymore." "That's not entirely true," Patricia countered. "People still respond to real talent, real emotion. Look at how audiences react when you perform. They're not just nostalgic for your old hits. They connect with you, with what you bring to the stage." Reba set down her glass and turned to face Patricia fully. "Then why does it feel like I'm being put out to pasture?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy and honest. Patricia reached over and squeezed Reba's hand. "Because the music business is brutal and ageist, and often doesn't know what it wants," Patricia said bluntly. "But here's what I know. You can still sing circles around 90% of what's on country radio. You still write songs that matter. And when you walk into a room, people pay attention. So the question isn't whether you deserve to be on that stage. It's whether you want to be." "I don't know if I can do it," Reba confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "My voice hasn't been the same since that bout with laryngitis last spring. I've been working with Dr. Harrison, doing all the exercises. But, Patricia, what if I get up there and fail? What if I prove all those people right who think I'm past my prime?" Patricia was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she pulled out her own phone and pulled up a video, turning it toward Reba. It was footage from Reba's performance at the Houston Rodeo earlier that year. 50,000 people singing along to Fancy. Reba commanding the stage with the same fire and presence she'd had at 25. "Does that look like someone who's past their prime?" Patricia asked. Reba watched herself on the screen, remembering that night. The energy of the crowd, the way her voice had felt strong and clear. But she also remembered the exhaustion afterward, the way it had taken her 3 days to fully recover, the persistent worry that each performance might be the one where everything fell apart. "That was months ago," Reba said. "Before the doctor said I needed to be more careful. Before you started letting fear make your decisions," Patricia interrupted. "Reba, I've watched you face down everything this industry could throw at you. Bad relationships, bad business deals, changing trends, critics who said you'd never last. And you know what you did every single time? You got back up and proved them wrong. So don't sit here and tell me you can't do this." Reba looked at her manager, this woman who'd stuck by her through everything, and felt a familiar stirring in her chest. It was the same feeling she'd had as a young woman in Oklahoma, singing into a hairbrush in her bedroom, dreaming of Nashville. The same feeling that had carried her through countless performances, recording sessions, and moments of doubt. "What's the timeline?" she asked finally. Patricia allowed herself a small smile. 4 weeks. They want you to perform 3 songs. Your choice. They'll provide backing musicians and vocals, arrange rehearsal time, the whole thing. It's your show, Reba. Your night. 3 songs in 4 weeks, Reba repeated. She stood up and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at her property, the carefully maintained grounds illuminated by landscape lighting. She'd earned all of this with her voice, her talent, her refusal to give up. And now she was considering walking away because she was afraid. "No," she said aloud, turning back to Patricia. "No, I'm not going to let fear win. Tell them yes. I'll do it." Patricia's smile widened. "Already did, about 3 hours ago. I know you, remember?" Despite everything, Reba laughed. "You're presumptuous. You know that? It's why you hired me," Patricia said, raising her wine glass. "To the Grand Ole Opry, and to reminding Nashville what a real country legend looks like." They clinked glasses, and for the first time in months, Reba felt something other than uncertainty. But as Patricia left that evening and Reba prepared for bed, the doubts crept back in. She stood in her bathroom, looking at her reflection in the mirror, the lines around her eyes, the silver threads in her red hair that her stylist diligently covered, the face of a woman who'd lived and loved and survived. "You can do this," she told her reflection. "You've done harder things." But as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, Reba couldn't shake the feeling that this performance mattered more than any she'd done in years. This wasn't just about singing 3 songs at the Grand Ole Opry. This was about proving to the industry, to her critics, to herself, that she still belonged. The next morning, Reba woke early and went through her usual routine. Coffee on the back porch, watching the sun come up over the Tennessee hills. Vocal exercises in her home studio, carefully warming up her voice the way Dr. Harrison had taught her. Then a call to her longtime musical director, James Whitmore, to discuss song choices for the show. "Reba McEntire, As I Live and Breathe," James answered, his voice warm with affection. "Patricia told me the news. How you feeling about it?" "Terrified and excited in equal measure," Reba admitted, "which is probably a good sign." "Probably means you still care," James agreed. "So, what are we thinking? Classic hits? Something new? A mix?" Reba had been thinking about this all morning. "I want to open with Fancy," she said. "Get the crowd going, remind them why they're there. Then maybe Consider Me Gone for something more recent. Show them I'm not just about the old stuff. And for the closer..." She paused, uncertainty creeping in again. "What is it?" James asked gently. "I've been working on something new," Reba said slowly. "Just me and my guitar, nothing fancy. It's about, well, it's about getting older in this industry, about still having something to say even when people stop listening. I don't know if it's any good, but..." "Send it to me," James interrupted. "Right now. I want to hear it." Reba walked to her studio and pulled up the voice memo she'd recorded 2 weeks ago, at 3 in the morning when sleep wouldn't come. She'd been sitting in the darkness, her Martin guitar in her lap, and the song had just poured out. Raw, honest, vulnerable. She'd listened to it once afterward, and then buried it in her phone, afraid of what it revealed about her fears and doubts. But now she attached the file and sent it to James, her finger hovering over the send button for a long moment before finally pressing it. 3 minutes later, her phone rang. "That's the one," James said. and his voice was thick with emotion. "That's your closer, Reba. That's the song that's going to remind everyone why you matter." "You really think so?" "I know so," James said firmly. "And I know something else. We're going to need really good backing vocals for this. Someone who can harmonize with you, support you without overshadowing. Let me make some calls." After they hung up, Reba sat in her studio for a long time, thinking about the song, about the performance, about everything that was riding on this one night. Patricia was right. She could still do this. She had to believe that. But belief, Reba was learning, was harder to maintain at 68 than it had been at 28. Emily was halfway through her lunch shift the next day when her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. She almost didn't answer. Probably another robocall or someone trying to sell her car insurance. But something made her step into the restaurant's back hallway and swipe to accept. "Hello? Is this Emily Patterson?" The voice was professional, female, slightly harried. "Yes, this is Emily. Who's calling?" "My name is Candace Morrison. I'm the talent coordinator for the Grand Ole Opry. I got your number from James Whitmore. He produced that showcase you did at the listening room last year. Are you available to talk for a minute?" Emily's heart started pounding. The Grand Ole Opry. James Whitmore remembered her. This couldn't be real. "Yes," she said, forcing her voice to stay calm. "Yes, I can talk. What can I do for you?" "We have a situation," Candace said, and Emily could hear papers shuffling in the background. "We're producing a tribute show in 4 weeks, and one of our featured artists needs backing vocals. The singer we had lined up just got cast in a touring company of a Broadway show and had to back out. James heard the demo you sent him and suggested you might be interested." Emily leaned against the wall, her legs suddenly unsteady. "What artist?" she managed to ask. "Reba McEntire." The hallway seemed to tilt. Emily had grown up listening to Reba, had learned to sing harmony by listening to her albums on repeat in her childhood bedroom. Her mother had taken her to see Reba in concert when she was 12, and it had been the night Emily decided she wanted to be a singer. "Miss Patterson? You still there?" "Yes," Emily said quickly. "Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. This is incredible. What would the position entail?" Candace laid it out. "Rehearsals starting next week. 3 times a week leading up to the show. A small stipend, nothing huge, but more than Emily made in a month of waiting tables. And the chance to sing backup for one of country music's legends at one of its most iconic venues. I'd need to hear you sing first, of course," Candace continued. "Can you come to the Opry tomorrow morning? Say, 10 o'clock? James will be there, and we'll run through some material, see if it's a good fit." "Yes," Emily said immediately, not even thinking about whether she could get the morning off work. "Yes, I'll be there." "Excellent. I'll text you the details. And, Emily, don't be nervous. James says you're exactly what we're looking for." After she hung up, Emily stood in the hallway for a full minute, trying to process what had just happened. Then she let out a laugh that was half joy, half disbelief, and rushed back into the restaurant to find Jessica. "I need tomorrow morning off," she said breathlessly, catching her roommate as she headed toward table 7 with a tray of drinks. Jessica raised her eyebrows. "Em, Danny just gave you that warning yesterday. Are you serious right now?" "It's the Grand Ole Opry," Emily said, her words tumbling over each other. "They want me to audition to sing backup for Reba McEntire. Jessica, this could be everything." Her roommate's eyes widened. "Holy shit. Okay, we're going to Danny right now, and you're going to explain this to him very calmly and professionally, and he's going to say yes because he's not a monster." Danny did say yes, though not without a heavy sigh and a pointed reminder that Emily was out of second chances. But even he seemed caught up in her excitement. offering gruff congratulations before shooing her back to work. That night, Emily barely slept. She lay in her narrow bed in the apartment she shared with Jessica, staring at the ceiling and running through every song she knew, every vocal exercise, every harmony she'd ever practiced. Her phone sat on her nightstand, the text from Candace Morrison glowing in the darkness. Grand Ole Opry, 10 a.m. side entrance. Ask for James. Good luck. At 7 the next morning, Emily was already awake and warming up her voice in the shower, running through scales and arpeggios. She dressed carefully in dark jeans and a simple black blouse. Professional, but not trying too hard. Her hands shook as she applied minimal makeup and pulled her brown hair back in a neat ponytail. Jessica knocked on her door at 8:30. "You look great," she said, handing Emily a travel mug of coffee. "Now go knock them dead." The drive to the Opry felt both endless and too short. Emily's stomach churned with nervous energy as she parked in the visitor lot and made her way to the side entrance Candace had specified. The building loomed above her, massive and historic, its brick facade holding decades of country music history. A security guard checked her ID and directed her inside, where Candace Morrison was waiting. A woman in her 40s with short blonde hair and an earpiece, carrying a clipboard and wearing the harried expression of someone juggling a dozen things at once. "Emily! Great! You're early. James is setting up in Studio B. Follow me." They walked through a maze of hallways lined with photographs of country music legends, each face a reminder of the tradition Emily was stepping into. Her nerves ratcheted higher with each step. Studio B was smaller than she'd expected, but still impressive, with top-of-the-line sound equipment and acoustic panels covering the walls. James Whitmore stood by the mixing board, a tall black man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Emily Patterson," he said, coming forward with an outstretched hand. "Been hoping I'd get a chance to work with you again. That showcase last year, you have something special, kid. Real special." "Thank you," Emily managed, shaking his hand. "I can't believe you remembered me." "Are you kidding? That original song you did? Borrowed Time? I've been humming it for months." He gestured to the microphone set up in the center of the room. "Okay, so here's the deal. We're going to run through a few songs, see how you blend with backing tracks. Nothing crazy, just want to hear your range and how you handle harmony. Ready?" Emily nodded, moving to the microphone on legs that didn't feel entirely solid. James handed her a sheet with lyrics. "Fancy," the song Reba had made iconic decades ago. "Let's start with this," James said, moving back to the board. "I'm going to play Reba's vocal track, and I want you to sing the harmony parts. Don't overthink it, just feel it." The music started, and Reba's voice filled the studio. That distinctive, powerful instrument that had defined country music for generations. Emily closed her eyes, listening for her entrance, and when it came, she let her voice rise to meet Reba's, finding the harmony line instinctively. She'd sung this song 100 times, alone in her car, in her apartment, at karaoke bars when she was feeling brave. But singing it here, in this studio, with Reba's voice in her ears, was different. It felt sacred somehow, like she was touching something important. When the song ended, there was a moment of silence. Then James let out a low whistle. "Okay," he said slowly. "Okay, that's what I thought. Can you run through it one more time? I want to record this to play for Reba." They did 3 more takes, each one feeling stronger than the last. Then James had her try "Consider Me Gone," a more recent Reba hit. Emily had been less familiar with this one, but she found her way into the harmonies, her voice weaving around Reba's with increasing confidence. When they finally finished, nearly an hour had passed. Candace had slipped out at some point, talking urgently on her phone, and James was grinning widely as he played back the recordings. "Emily," he said, "I'm going to be straight with you. This gig? It's yours if you want it. Reba's going to love you. You've got the voice, the instinct, and you don't try to compete with her. That's important. Some singers can't help but try to outshine whoever they're supporting, but you make her sound better. That's a gift." Emily felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. "I want it," she said, her voice rough with emotion. "I want it so much." "Good," James said. "Then let's talk logistics. First rehearsal is Monday, 2 o'clock. That work for you?" "I'll make it work," Emily promised, already mentally calculating how to juggle her restaurant schedule. "One more thing," James said, his expression turning serious. "Reba's going through a tough time right now. The industry's not being kind to her, and she's carrying a lot of doubt about this performance. She needs someone who's going to support her, not just vocally, but, well, emotionally, I guess. She needs to be reminded why she's still one of the greats. Think you can handle that?" Emily thought about her own doubts, her own struggles with an industry that seemed determined to break her spirit. "Yeah," she said softly. "I think I can." As she drove home that afternoon, Emily felt like she was floating. She called her mother first, barely coherent with excitement, and Linda Patterson cried happy tears on the other end of the line. Then Jessica, who screamed so loudly Emily had to hold the phone away from her ear. And finally, almost reluctantly, her father. "That's great, sweetheart," Robert Patterson said, and he sounded like he meant it. "Really great. I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Dad," Emily said, and for the first time in months, she felt like maybe, just maybe, he was starting to believe in her dream again. But as the initial euphoria faded and Emily lay in bed that night, a new anxiety crept in. She was about to work with one of her idols, someone whose career had spanned decades and who'd achieved everything Emily dreamed of. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she disappointed James? Or, worse, disappointed Reba? The doubts circled like vultures, familiar and persistent. But beneath them, stronger than before, was something else. Hope. Monday arrived faster than Emily expected. She'd spent the weekend alternating between extreme anxiety and giddy excitement, practicing harmonies until Jessica threatened to hide her guitar. The morning of the first rehearsal, Emily changed her outfit 4 times before settling on dark jeans and a simple burgundy sweater. Professional but approachable, confident but not cocky. The rehearsal was scheduled at a private studio in Green Hills, a converted warehouse that several of Nashville's top musicians used for recording and practice sessions. Emily arrived 20 minutes early, sitting in her car and running through breathing exercises to calm her racing heart. At 1:55 p.m., she forced herself out of the car and walked to the entrance, where a security guard checked her name against a list before buzzing her in. The interior was industrial chic, exposed brick, high ceilings with visible ductwork, and the muted sound of music coming from behind several closed doors. James met her in the lobby, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Figured you might need this," he said with a knowing smile, handing her one. "First day jitters? Is it that obvious?" Emily asked, accepting the coffee gratefully. "You look like you're about to face a firing squad," James said, but his tone was kind. "Relax. Reba's going to love you. She's in Studio A, getting set up. Ready?" Emily nodded, following him down a hallway lined with gold and platinum records. Through a window, she could see a drummer setting up his kit, and somewhere a guitar was being tuned. The sounds and smells of professional musicianship surrounded her, both intimidating and intoxicating. James pushed open the door to Studio A, and Emily's breath caught in her throat. Reba McEntire stood by the piano, talking with the pianist, a woman in her 30s with short, dark hair. Reba wore dark jeans and a black blouse, not unlike Emily's own, her red hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked smaller in person than Emily had expected, more human somehow, though no less iconic. When Reba looked up and saw them enter, her face broke into a warm smile that eased something tight in Emily's chest. "You must be Emily," Reba said, coming forward with her hand extended. "I listened to those recordings James sent over. Honey, you have a beautiful voice." Emily shook her hand, acutely aware that she was touching someone whose music had shaped her childhood. "Thank you, Ms. McEntire. I'm such a huge fan. Your music has meant so much to me over the years." "Call me Reba," she said, her Oklahoma accent warm and genuine. "And thank you. That's sweet. But let's see how you feel after I've run you through the ringer for the next 4 weeks." There was an edge beneath the joke, something uncertain that Emily recognized because she heard it in her own voice sometimes. Before she could process it, James was introducing her to the rest of the musicians: the pianist, Angela Hernandez, the guitarist, Brian Foster, and the drummer, Kevin Chen, all accomplished session musicians who'd worked with everyone from Taylor Swift to Keith Urban. "All right, folks," James said, clapping his hands together. "Let's get started. We've got 3 songs to nail in 4 weeks, which sounds like a lot of time, but really isn't. Emily, you've got the lyric sheets?" Emily pulled them from her bag, her hands steadier now that they were focused on the work. Music had always been her safe place, the one area where she felt truly confident. They started with Fancy, the song Emily had already practiced. Reba counted them in, and when they began to sing together, Emily's voice finding the harmony beneath Reba's lead, something magical happened. Their voices blended seamlessly, Emily's slightly lower register providing a rich foundation that made Reba's soar even higher. When they finished the first run-through, there was a moment of silence. Then Reba laughed, a sound of genuine delight. "Oh, honey, that's it," she said, turning to look at Emily with something like wonder in her eyes. "That's exactly what I needed. Can you feel it? How our voices just fit?" Emily nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. She'd sung backup before, but never like this. Never with someone whose voice complemented hers so perfectly that the result was greater than the sum of its parts. They ran through the song 3 more times, working out the arrangements, finding the moments where Emily should step forward and where she should pull back. Reba was generous with her praise, but exacting in her standards, pushing Emily to match her phrasing, her emotional delivery, her commitment to the story in the lyrics. By the time they moved on to Consider Me Gone, Emily had forgotten to be nervous. This was just work. Hard, demanding, exhilarating work. The second song was trickier. It required more complex harmonies, with Emily sometimes singing above Reba's lead. It took them nearly an hour to work through the first verse and chorus, James stopping them frequently to adjust timing or suggest different approaches. "Emily, can you try taking that last line up an octave?" James asked after their 6th attempt at the bridge. "I want to hear how it sounds with you above Reba instead of below." Emily tried it, her voice climbing into her higher register. It was beautiful, but felt wrong somehow, too attention-grabbing. Reba must have felt it too, because she shook her head. "Let's keep her lower," she said. "I like how it grounds the emotion." They took a water break around 4:30, and Emily found herself standing by the window with Reba, looking out at the parking lot below. "How long have you been in Nashville?" Reba asked, sipping from a bottle of water. 4 years, Emily said. "Moved here right after college. I had this whole plan. I was going to write songs, get discovered, have a record deal by 25. She laughed self-deprecatingly. "Turns out the universe had other ideas." Reba studied her with those sharp blue eyes, seeing more than Emily was comfortable revealing. "What do you do when you're not singing backup for old has-beens?" "You're not—" Emily started to protest, but Reba held up a hand. "It's okay, honey. I know what people are saying. Past my prime, should retire gracefully. All of that." Her voice was light, but Emily could hear the hurt beneath it. "But I asked about you. What's keeping the lights on while you chase the dream?" "I wait tables at a restaurant downtown," Emily admitted. "The Harvest Kitchen. It's fine. Good tips. Flexible schedule." Or it was flexible until I started missing shifts for auditions that went nowhere. "Any luck with those auditions?" Emily shook her head. 14 rejection letters this year. The last one came the day before James called about this gig. I was seriously thinking about giving up, going back to Kentucky, getting a real job. She made air quotes around the phrase. "But you didn't." "No," Emily said softly. "Not yet, anyway." Reba was quiet for a moment, looking out the window. "Can I tell you something?" she said finally. "And I need you to really hear me. Of course, this business will chew you up and spit you out if you let it. It doesn't matter how talented you are, how much you love music, how hard you work. There's always going to be someone younger, someone prettier, someone more willing to compromise their artistic vision for commercial success. And there are going to be times, lots of times, when you wonder why you're doing this to yourself." Emily nodded, recognizing the truth in every word. "But here's the thing," Reba continued, turning to look at Emily directly. "The only people who make it are the ones who can't imagine doing anything else. The ones who wake up every morning and choose this, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. So you need to ask yourself, is this what you choose? Or are you just scared to let go of a dream you've outgrown?" The question hit Emily like a physical blow. Was she still choosing this? Or was she just too stubborn or too afraid to admit defeat? "I don't know," she admitted quietly. "Some days, I'm sure. Other days, I'm not sure of anything." Reba's expression softened. "Then, let's make a deal," she said. "For the next 4 weeks, you're going to show up here and sing with everything you've got. No holding back, no second-guessing. And at the end of it, after the show, you'll know. One way or another, you'll know if this is your path." "How can you be so sure?" "Because the stage doesn't lie," Reba said simply. "When you're up there, in front of an audience, giving everything you are to the music, that's when you know. That's when you find out if you're meant for this or not." James called them back before Emily could respond. But Reba's words echoed in her mind for the rest of the rehearsal. They finished running through "Consider Me Gone," and then, as the evening light faded outside, Reba pulled out her acoustic guitar. "I want to play you the third song," she said, settling onto a stool. "The one I wrote. I'm still working out the arrangement, but I'd like your thoughts." She began to play, her fingers moving confidently over the strings, and then she started to sing. The song was called "Still Here," and it was beautiful, raw, and vulnerable, about fighting for relevance in a world that wants to forget you, about refusing to disappear quietly, about finding strength in survival. Emily listened with tears in her eyes, hearing not just the melody, but the pain and determination beneath it. This wasn't just a song, it was Reba's declaration, her refusal to let the industry define her worth. When Reba finished, the studio was silent, except for the fading ring of the guitar strings. "That's the one," Emily said, her voice thick with emotion. "That's the song that's going to remind everyone why you're still here." Reba looked at her, and for a moment, the confident legend was gone, replaced by a woman who desperately needed to hear those words. "You think so?" "I know so," Emily said firmly. and I want to help you make it perfect." They worked on "Still Here" for another hour, Emily suggesting harmonies and James offering production ideas. By the time they wrapped for the night at 8 p.m., everyone was exhausted but energized. As Emily gathered her things, Reba approached her one more time. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for what you said about the song. I've been terrified to share it, worried it's I don't know, too honest." "It's honest," Emily agreed, "but that's why it works. People are tired of manufactured perfection. They want real." Reba smiled, a small but genuine expression. "I think we're going to work well together, Emily Patterson." "I think so too." Emily drove home that night feeling lighter than she had in months. The rehearsal had been hard work, demanding and intense, but it had also felt right. More right than anything had in a long time. Jessica was waiting up when Emily got home, sprawled on their second-hand couch with a glass of wine and an expectant expression. "Well?" she demanded. "How was it? What's she like? Did you completely lose your mind and forget how to sing?" Emily laughed, collapsing next to her roommate. "It was incredible. She was incredible. And Jess, when we sang together, it was like our voices were made to harmonize. I want details. All the details." So Emily told her about the rehearsal, the songs, the conversation with Reba about choosing this life. Jessica listened intently, asking questions and offering commentary, and by the time Emily finished, it was past midnight. "I'm proud of you," Jessica said, squeezing Emily's hand. "And I think Reba's right. This is going to tell you what you need to know." "I hope so," Emily said, "because I'm running out of time to figure it out." The next 3 weeks fell into a demanding rhythm. Emily worked her shifts at the Harvest Kitchen, got minimal sleep, and showed up to rehearsals ready to give everything she had. She and Reba developed a quick rapport, their musical chemistry translating into genuine friendship. Reba, Emily discovered, was funny and self-deprecating, generous with advice and praise, but ruthless in pursuit of perfection. She pushed Emily hard, demanding better phrasing, stronger support, more emotional connection to the lyrics. But she also shared stories from her career, offered guidance on navigating the music industry, and treated Emily not like an employee, but like a colleague. "You remind me of myself at your age," Reba said one afternoon during a break. They were 3 weeks into rehearsals, fine-tuning the arrangements. "So hungry, so determined. Don't lose that, Emily. No matter what happens. Even if I end up waiting tables for the rest of my life?" Emily asked, only half joking. "Even then," Reba said seriously, "because if you keep that fire, if you keep believing in your voice and your music, eventually the right opportunity will come along. It might not look like what you imagined, but it'll be right." Emily wanted to believe her, but the old doubts kept creeping in. She'd gotten another rejection while they were rehearsing, this one from a label she'd been particularly hopeful about. The email had been blunt. "Your songwriting doesn't fit our current roster." She didn't tell Reba about it, but somehow Reba knew anyway. That's when Reba sat her down and shared her own stories of rejection. The countless times she'd been told she wasn't pretty enough, wasn't young enough, wasn't country enough. The industry that had tried to mold her into something she wasn't. "But I kept showing up," Reba said. "I kept singing. And eventually, people had to listen." "What if they don't listen to me?" Emily asked quietly. "Then you make them listen," Reba said firmly. "That's what we're going to do on that stage. We're going to remind everyone what real country music sounds like." With 1 week until the show, the rehearsals intensified. They ran through all 3 songs multiple times each session, working on transitions and stage presence. Reba's vocal coach, Dr. Julia Harrison, came to several sessions, offering technical guidance and helping Reba manage the demands she was placing on her voice. Emily watched Reba work through the vocal exercises with dedication and discipline, never complaining even when she was clearly exhausted. It was humbling and inspiring in equal measure. "She's worried," James confided to Emily one evening after Reba had left. "About her voice, about failing, about proving the critics right. She's carrying a lot." "She's going to be amazing," Emily said with certainty. "I can feel it." "I hope you're right," James said. "Because if this doesn't go well, I'm not sure Reba will recover from it. This performance, it means everything to her." The weight of that responsibility settled on Emily's shoulders. She wasn't just singing backup anymore. She was part of something bigger, something that could define the next chapter of Reba's career. Or end it. 3 days before the show, they had their final full rehearsal. Everything came together. The songs, the harmonies, the emotional arc of the performance. When they finished Still Here, the new song that would close the set, there wasn't a dry eye in the studio. "That's it," James said, his voice rough. "That's what we're taking to the Opry." Reba hugged Emily tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing in me, for making me sound better than I have in years." "You're making me better too," Emily whispered back. "This whole experience, it's changing everything for me." They spent the next 2 days doing smaller preparation. Costume fittings, stage blocking, technical rehearsals. Emily tried not to let the magnitude of performing at the Grand Ole Opry overwhelm her, but it was impossible not to feel the weight of history in every corner of that building. The night before the show, Emily couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, running through the songs in her head, imagining all the ways things could go wrong. Around 2 a.m., her phone lit up with a text from Reba. "You awake?" Emily called her immediately. "Couldn't sleep either?" "Not a wink," Reba admitted. "Keep thinking about every possible disaster." "Me too," Emily said. "What if I forget the words? What if my voice cracks? What if—" "Stop," Reba interrupted gently. "We've done the work, Em. We've practiced until we can sing these songs in our sleep. Now, we just have to trust ourselves." "Are you scared?" Emily asked. There was a long pause. "Terrified," Reba admitted. "This is the biggest performance I've done in years, and everyone's going to be watching, waiting to see if I still have it. If I fail—" "You won't fail," Emily said fiercely. "We won't fail. Because tomorrow night, we're going to walk out on that stage and show them what real talent looks like. Not manufactured, not auto-tuned, just 2 women who love country music and know how to sing." Reba laughed softly. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best," Emily said. They talked for another hour, sharing fears and hopes, until finally exhaustion caught up with them both. Before they hung up, Reba said one more thing. "Whatever happens tomorrow, Emily, I want you to know. You've given me my confidence back. You've reminded me why I do this. So thank you." "Thank you for giving me a chance," Emily replied, "for seeing something in me worth developing." "Oh, honey," Reba said warmly, "I didn't develop anything. That talent was already there. I just helped you find your voice again." As Emily finally drifted off to sleep, she thought about Reba's words, finding her voice again. Maybe that's what these past 4 weeks had been about. Not just singing backup for a legend, but rediscovering why she'd fallen in love with music in the first place. Tomorrow night, at the Grand Ole Opry, she'd find out if that was enough. Emily's alarm went off at 7 a.m. Though she'd been awake since dawn, watching the December sunlight gradually fill her bedroom. Today was the day. Tonight, she'd stand on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry alongside Reba McEntire, performing for thousands of country music fans and industry professionals. Her stomach lurched at the thought. Jessica knocked on her door, entering with a cup of coffee before Emily could respond. Her roommate looked almost as nervous as Emily felt. "Big day," Jessica said, sitting on the edge of Emily's bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I might throw up at any moment," Emily admitted, accepting the coffee. "Which is probably normal, right?" "Totally normal," Jessica assured her. "When I had to present my thesis, I threw up twice before noon." "You've got this, Em. You've been preparing for weeks." Emily nodded, sipping the coffee and trying to convince her nervous system that everything would be fine. The performance wasn't until 8 p.m., which meant she had 13 hours to somehow keep herself from spiraling into panic. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Your father and I are driving up today. We wouldn't miss this for the world. Love you, baby girl." Emily's eyes filled with unexpected tears. Her parents were coming. After all the arguments about giving up music, after all her father's pragmatic advice about backup plans, they were driving 3 hours from Bowling Green to watch her perform. She texted back, "Love you too. See you tonight." At 9, Emily forced herself to eat breakfast, though the scrambled eggs tasted like cardboard. She went through her vocal warm-ups methodically, scales and arpeggios, and the exercises Dr. Harrison had taught her during their few coaching sessions. Her voice felt strong and clear, which was something. Around noon, her phone rang. "Reba." "Hey," Emily answered. "How are you doing?" "About as well as you'd expect," Reba said with a shaky laugh. "I've been up since 5, driving Patricia crazy. She threatened to sedate me if I didn't calm down." "I think my roommate is considering the same thing," Emily said. "This is insane, right?" "The nerves?" "Completely insane," Reba agreed. "I've performed thousands of times, but this feels different, bigger somehow." "Because it is bigger," Emily said. "At least for me. This is the Grand Ole Opry. This is you reclaiming your place. This is everything." "No pressure then," Reba joked weakly. They talked for a while longer, neither of them saying much of substance, but both drawing comfort from the connection. When they finally hung up, Emily felt marginally calmer. They were in this together. At 3 p.m., Emily arrived at the Opry for sound check and final preparations. The building was already buzzing with activity. Stagehands setting up equipment, lighting technicians making adjustments, other performers running through their sets for the tribute show. Emily found Reba in her dressing room, already in hair and makeup. She looked stunning in a navy blue dress that caught the light when she moved, her red hair styled in soft waves. "You look beautiful," Emily said honestly. "I feel like I'm going to throw up," Reba admitted. "Is that normal?" "According to everyone I've talked to today, completely normal." James arrived with their final schedule. Sound check at 4, then an hour to get ready and center themselves. The show would start at 7 with opening performances from other artists. Reba was scheduled to go on at 8:15, which meant an hour and 15 minutes of waiting backstage while their nerves multiplied. Sound check went smoothly. The stage crew was professional and efficient, getting levels right quickly. Emily stood at her microphone, slightly behind and to the left of Reba's, and felt the weight of the empty auditorium around them. In a few hours, every one of those 4,000 seats would be filled. They ran through abbreviated versions of all 3 songs. Fancy sounded powerful and confident. Consider Me Gone had moments of beautiful complexity in the harmonies. And Still Here, the new song, the vulnerable one, made several crew members stop what they were doing to listen. "That's the one that's going to destroy them," James said quietly to Emily as they wrapped up. "That's the one everyone will remember." After sound check, Emily retreated to the small dressing room that had been assigned to her. It was modest compared to Reba's suite, but it had everything she needed: a mirror, a couch, and blessed quiet. She changed into her performance outfit, a deep green dress that Jessica had helped her pick out, simple but elegant. and then sat down to wait. The minutes crawled by. Emily tried to distract herself with her phone, scrolling through social media without really seeing anything. She did more vocal warm-ups. She paced. She sat down. She stood up. She checked the time. 6:30 p.m. A knock on her door made her jump. She opened it to find Patricia, Reba's manager, standing there with a warm smile. "Mind if I come in for a minute?" Patricia asked. "Of course," Emily said, stepping aside. Patricia settled onto the couch, studying Emily with those sharp, assessing eyes. "How are you holding up?" "Barely," Emily admitted. "Is Reba okay?" "She's nervous, but ready," Patricia said. "Emily, I wanted to talk to you before the show. These past few weeks, watching you two work together, it's been good for her. Really good. You've reminded her of something she'd forgotten." "What's that?" "That music is supposed to be collaborative, joyful. That it's not about competition or proving anything. It's about connection." Patricia leaned forward. "Whatever happens tonight, I want you to know you've already succeeded. You've given Reba her confidence back. That's worth more than any standing ovation." Emily felt tears threatening and blinked them back furiously. "Thank you," she managed. "This opportunity has meant everything to me." "It's just the beginning," Patricia said with certainty. "I can feel it." "You've got something special, Emily Patterson. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." After Patricia left, Emily sat in silence for a while, processing Patricia's words. Then she pulled out her phone and called her parents. "We're here!" her mother answered excitedly. "Just found our seats." "Emily, this place is incredible. Your father's taking pictures of everything." Emily laughed, some of the tension easing. "I'm so glad you came. I wasn't sure you would." "Are you kidding?" Robert Patterson's voice came through, slightly muffled. "My daughter's performing at the Grand Ole Opry with Reba McEntire. I'm telling everyone who'll listen." "Dad," Emily said, her voice catching, "that means everything to me." "You're going to be amazing, sweetheart," he said, his usual pragmatism replaced by genuine emotion. "We're so proud of you." After they hung up, Emily felt steadier. She could do this. She had to do this, not just for herself, but for everyone who'd believed in her when she'd stopped believing in herself. At 7:30, there was another knock. This time, it was James. "Showtime in 45 minutes, he said. "You ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Emily said, standing up and smoothing down her dress. "Good. Come on, let's go find Reba. I want to get you both backstage before the chaos starts." They walked through the corridors together, passing other performers and crew members. The energy was electric, everyone moving with purpose and focus. They found Reba standing in the wings, watching another artist perform on stage. She turned when she heard them approach, and Emily saw her own nervousness reflected in Reba's face. "Hey," Reba said softly. "Hey," Emily replied. They stood together in silence, listening to the music and the audience's applause. The artist finished their set, took their bows, and exited stage left. The crowd's energy was palpable even from backstage. 4,000 people who loved country music, who had come to celebrate its legends. 5 minutes, a stage manager said, appearing with a headset and clipboard. Reba took a deep breath, then reached over and squeezed Emily's hand. "Whatever happens out there, thank you for everything." "We're going to be incredible," Emily said firmly. "I know it." James appeared with last-minute adjustments. Emily's mic pack wasn't sitting quite right. Reba needed a water bottle within reach. The final minutes ticked by in a blur of small details and mounting adrenaline. Then the host was on stage, introducing them. Emily heard her own name, Emily Patterson, alongside Reba's, and the reality of what was about to happen hit her like a wave. Thousands of people were about to hear her sing. Her parents were in that audience. Industry professionals who could change her career with a single phone call were out there. "Here we go," Reba whispered. The stage manager counted them down. 3, 2, 1. The house lights dimmed. The stage lights came up, and Reba McEntire walked onto the Grand Ole Opry stage with Emily Patterson at her side. The applause was deafening. Emily had known the audience would be enthusiastic, but this was something else. A wall of sound that washed over them, welcoming and encouraging. Reba raised her hand in acknowledgement, that famous smile on her face, and Emily could see some of the tension leave her shoulders. They took their positions at their microphones. The band settled in. The audience quieted, waiting, and then the opening notes of Fancy filled the air. Reba started singing, her voice strong and clear, and Emily felt everything else fall away. All the nervousness, all the doubt, all the fear. It evaporated the moment she opened her mouth to harmonize. This was what she was meant to do. This was where she belonged. Their voices blended perfectly, just as they had in rehearsals, but amplified by the energy of the live audience. Emily could feel the crowd responding, their attention focused and appreciative. She lost herself in the music, in the story of the song, in the pure joy of singing with someone whose artistry she'd admired for so long. The song built to its powerful conclusion, and when they hit the final note together, the audience erupted. Emily and Reba exchanged a quick glance. They'd nailed it. But there was no time to celebrate. They moved immediately into "Consider Me Gone," the tempo picking up, the mood shifting. This song was more complex, with intricate harmonies that required Emily to really focus. But she and Reba had practiced it so many times that her voice knew exactly where to go, when to rise above Reba's lead, and when to support from below. There was a moment in the bridge where Emily had a brief solo line, just 4 measures where she sang alone before Reba came back in. In rehearsals, it had always felt comfortable. But now, with thousands of people listening, Emily felt exposed. Her voice wavered slightly on the first word. Then she heard Reba's voice, barely audible, singing the harmony underneath her, even though it wasn't in the arrangement, supporting her, reminding her she wasn't alone. Emily's voice steadied and soared, and when Reba came back in for the final chorus, they were perfectly in sync again. The song ended to more thunderous applause, and Emily saw Reba's shoulders relax a bit more. 2 down, 1 to go. The stage lights dimmed slightly, creating a more intimate atmosphere. Reba picked up her acoustic guitar, settling onto a stool that had been placed center stage. Emily moved to stand beside her, close enough to share Reba's mic for this final song. "I want to share something new with you tonight," Reba said to the audience, her voice carrying clearly through the space. "This song, it's personal. It's about still being here, still having something to say, even when the world wants to move on to the next thing. I think a lot of you might relate to that feeling." There was a murmur of recognition and approval from the crowd. Reba looked over at Emily, who nodded encouragingly. Then Reba began to play. The opening chords of "Still Here" were simple but beautiful, and when Reba started singing, Emily felt chills run down her arms. This was the song that mattered most, the one that was Reba's truth laid bare. Emily came in on the chorus, her voice wrapping around Reba's like a warm embrace. They'd arranged it so that Emily's harmonies would be more prominent on this song, creating a sense of support and solidarity. It was 2 voices, but 1 message. We're still here. We still matter. Don't count us out. The second verse was all Reba, and Emily watched her pour everything into the performance. All the fear, all the determination, all the love for the music that had defined her life. There were tears on Reba's cheeks by the time she reached the bridge, but her voice never wavered. Emily joined her for the final chorus, and they built it together, their voices growing stronger and more powerful with each line. The audience was completely silent, except for the occasional sniffle. Everyone in that room was feeling the weight of what was happening on that stage. The song ended quietly, Reba's guitar fading to silence, their final harmony hanging in the air. For a moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched on, and Emily felt her heart start to pound again. Then someone in the audience stood up. Then another, and another. Within seconds, the entire Grand Ole Opry was on its feet, applauding and cheering and crying. It wasn't just appreciation for a good performance. It was recognition, validation, love. Reba looked out at the audience with tears streaming down her face, and Emily saw something transform in her. The doubt was gone. The fear had vanished. In its place was the confident, radiant woman who'd conquered country music decades ago and had just proven she could still do it. Reba stood, still holding her guitar, and pulled Emily into a one-armed hug. "Thank you," she whispered fiercely. "Thank you for reminding me who I am." They took their bows together, the applause continuing for what felt like forever. Emily spotted her parents in the audience, her father wiping his eyes while her mother waved frantically. She saw James in the wings, grinning wider than she'd ever seen. She saw industry professionals she recognized, people who could open doors, all on their feet and clapping. But more than anything, she felt the truth of what Reba had told her weeks ago. The stage doesn't lie. And right now, in this moment, the stage was telling Emily exactly what she needed to know. This was where she belonged. Backstage was chaos after their performance. People crowded around them, musicians congratulating Reba, venue staff handling logistics, photographers trying to get shots. Patricia appeared and expertly navigated them through the crowd to a quiet corner where they could catch their breath. "That was extraordinary," Patricia said, her voice thick with emotion. "I've been working with Reba for over 2 decades, and that's one of the best performances I've ever seen her give. And you," she turned to Emily, "you were exactly what she needed up there." Emily couldn't quite process the praise. Her adrenaline was still pumping, her heart still racing. She felt simultaneously exhausted and energized, wrung out and electric. Reba was surrounded by well-wishers, but she kept looking over at Emily, making sure she was okay. When there was finally a break in the crowd, she made her way over. "We need to talk," Reba said quietly. "Come to my dressing room in 20 minutes?" Emily nodded, curious but too overwhelmed to ask questions. She spent the next 20 minutes accepting congratulations from people she didn't know, answering questions from a local news reporter who'd been covering the event, and trying to find her parents in the crowd. When she finally located them, Linda Patterson grabbed her in a fierce hug. "That was beautiful, baby," her mother said, crying openly. "So beautiful I can't even find the words." Robert Patterson looked uncomfortable with his own emotion, but hugged Emily tightly anyway. "I was wrong," he said gruffly, "about you giving up, getting a backup plan. You're meant for this, Em. I see that now." "Dad," Emily started, but he shook his head. "Let me finish. I've been so worried about you struggling, about you not having security. But watching you up there tonight, seeing what you can do, that's worth more than any steady paycheck. I'm sorry I didn't believe in you sooner." Emily hugged him again, tears sliding down her own cheeks. "You're here now. That's what matters." After a few more minutes with her parents, Emily made her way to Reba's dressing room. She knocked softly, and Patricia opened the door. "Come in," Patricia said with a knowing smile. "We've been waiting for you." Inside, Reba had changed out of her performance dress into comfortable clothes, her makeup removed. She looked tired, but happy, more relaxed than Emily had seen her in weeks. "Sit down," Reba said, patting the couch beside her. "I want to talk to you about something important." Emily sat, suddenly nervous. "Is everything okay?" "More than okay," Reba said. "Emily, tonight was special. Not just the performance, though that was incredible, but what we created together. The way our voices blend, the chemistry we have on stage. I'd be a fool not to recognize that." Patricia jumped in. "What Reba's trying to say is that we want to offer you a position, not just as a backing vocalist, but as a permanent part of Reba's touring band. We're putting together dates for next year, smaller venues, more intimate shows, and we want you to be part of it." Emily stared at them, certain she'd misheard. "You want me to tour with you?" "Not just tour," Reba clarified. "I want to collaborate with you, write songs together, maybe record some duets. Emily, you're talented in your own right, and I think we could create something really special together. Something that honors country music's roots, while still being fresh and relevant." "I don't understand," Emily said slowly. "You just met me a month ago. You barely know me." "I know enough," Reba said firmly. "I know you're dedicated, talented, and willing to work hard. I know you love music for the right reasons. And I know that singing with you makes me better. What more do I need to know?" Patricia pulled out a folder. "We've drawn up a preliminary contract. Obviously, you'll want to have a lawyer look at it. But the basics are, you'd be on salary, with benefits, health insurance, travel expenses covered, the works. You'd rehearse and perform with Reba, and you'd have time to work on your own music too. We're not trying to own you. We're trying to build a partnership." Emily's hands shook as she took the folder. This was it. This was the opportunity she'd been waiting for, dreaming of, fighting for. A steady income doing what she loved, working with someone she admired, a chance to prove herself on a bigger stage. But underneath the excitement was uncertainty. What about her own music? Her own dreams of being a solo artist? Would she be giving that up to be someone's backing vocalist? Even someone as legendary as Reba? Reba seemed to read her mind. "I know what you're thinking," she said gently. "You're worried this means giving up on your own career. But Emily, let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Success doesn't always look like what you imagined. Sometimes the best opportunities come from unexpected places. I've been trying to get a record deal for 4 years," Emily said quietly. "Sending demos, playing showcases, doing everything right. And all I got was rejection. Because you were trying to fit into someone else's idea of what a country artist should be," Reba said. "But what if instead of waiting for the industry to validate you, you created your own path? Work with me, learn from me, build your audience. And when you're ready to release your own music, you'll do it from a position of strength, not desperation." Patricia added, "We've already had 3 calls from labels asking about you. They saw tonight's performance, and they want to know who you are. This gig would give you visibility, credibility, and connections. It's not the end of your solo career. It's the beginning." Emily looked down at the contract in her hands, her mind racing. She thought about her apartment, about the Harvest kitchen, about the rejection letters and the mounting pressure to give up. She thought about tonight, about standing on that stage and feeling more herself than she had in years. "Can I have some time to think about it?" she asked. "Of course," Reba said. "Take a week. Talk to whoever you need to talk to. But Emily, I hope you'll say yes. I really do." Emily left Reba's dressing room in a daze. She walked through the now quiet corridors of the Grand Ole Opry, the earlier chaos replaced by the calm of people packing up, heading home. She found a bench near the stage entrance and sat down, trying to process everything. Her phone buzzed. "Jessica, where are you? Everyone's talking about your performance. Get your butt to Murphy's. We're celebrating." Murphy's was a bar near their apartment, a regular hangout for Nashville musicians. Emily started to text back that she was too tired, but then stopped. No, tonight deserved to be celebrated. Tomorrow she could worry about contracts and decisions and the future. Tonight, she was going to enjoy what she'd accomplished. She texted back, "On my way." The week following the Grand Ole Opry performance passed in a surreal blur. Emily's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists wanting interviews, friends and acquaintances she hadn't heard from in years, suddenly reaching out, and industry people whose names she recognized from album credits asking if they could meet for coffee. The video of "Still Here" had gone viral on social media, with clips of Reba's emotional performance and Emily's harmonies being shared across platforms. The comments were overwhelmingly positive. "Who is that backing vocalist? She's incredible. And Reba sounds better than she has in years." And "This is what country music should be." Emily found herself reading through them late at night, still not quite believing this was real. She'd called Danny at the Harvest Kitchen the morning after the show, expecting to have to grovel for missing yet another shift. Instead, he'd laughed. "Em, I saw the video. Everyone's seen the video. You don't have to work here anymore. You're about to be famous." "I'm not famous," Emily had protested. "I sang backup." "For now," Danny had said knowingly. "But not for long. When you're playing stadiums, remember the little people, yeah?" Emily had promised she would, though she still couldn't imagine that future. She'd given her 2 weeks' notice, feeling both liberated and terrified. Without the restaurant, she had no steady income. But Reba's contract was sitting on her kitchen table, reviewed by a lawyer Jessica had connected her with, waiting for her signature. The lawyer had been enthusiastic. "This is a good deal," she'd said. "Really good. They're offering you fair compensation, creative freedom, and room to grow. If you're serious about a music career, this is an excellent opportunity." Emily knew she was right, but signing that contract felt like closing the door on one dream to walk through another, and she wasn't sure she was ready. On Wednesday afternoon, she met her parents for lunch at a quiet restaurant in East Nashville. They'd driven up again, wanting to talk to her about the offer. "So you're really considering turning it down?" Robert Patterson asked. His fork paused halfway to his mouth. "I'm not turning it down," Emily clarified. "I'm just thinking about it." Linda reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "Baby, what's holding you back?" Emily took a deep breath. "I came to Nashville to be a singer-songwriter, to share my music, tell my stories. And this opportunity, it's amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's still being someone's backup. It's still not my dream." "Dreams change," her father said pragmatically. "And sometimes they need to change so we can actually achieve them. You've been banging your head against the same wall for 4 years, Em. Maybe it's time to try a different approach." "Your father's right," Linda said gently. "And honey, working with Reba doesn't mean giving up your own music. It means learning from someone who's already done what you want to do. That's invaluable." "I know," Emily said quietly. "I know you're both right. It's just hard to let go of what I thought my career would look like." Robert set down his fork and looked at his daughter seriously. "Can I tell you something? When I was your age, I wanted to be a journalist. Investigative reporting, big stories, making a difference. But I had a family to support, so I took a job at an insurance company. 40 years later, I'm still there. And you know what? I have regrets." Emily had never heard her father talk like this. He was always so practical, so focused on stability and security. But watching you on that stage last week," he continued, "seeing how alive you were, how right it all looked, I realized that some risks are worth taking. Not every risk, but this one? This is the smart play, Em. Take the opportunity. Learn from Reba. Build your career on a solid foundation instead of hoping for a lucky break that might never come." Emily felt tears prickling at her eyes. "I'm scared, Dad. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail?" "Then you fail," he said simply. "But at least you'll fail trying, instead of always wondering what might have been." After lunch with her parents, Emily drove aimlessly around Nashville thinking. She passed the Bluebird Cafe, where she'd performed her original songs to small but appreciative audiences. She drove by the recording studios where she'd paid too much money for demos that went nowhere. She passed her apartment building, where she'd written countless songs in the cramped space she shared with Jessica. Finally, she found herself parked outside Reba's house in Franklin. She hadn't planned to come here, but somehow it felt right. She texted Reba, "I'm outside. Can we talk?" 2 minutes later, the gate opened. Reba was waiting at the front door, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. "I was hoping you'd come by this week," Reba said, ushering her inside. "Coffee?" They settled in Reba's kitchen, the same place where Reba had read the Grand Ole Opry email weeks ago. It felt full circle somehow. "I'm scared to say yes," Emily admitted without preamble. "Not because I don't want to work with you, I do, but because saying yes feels like admitting that my original dream isn't going to happen." Reba nodded slowly. "I understand that, more than you know. But Emily, can I tell you about my first big break?" Emily nodded. "I came to Nashville in 1975, absolutely convinced I was going to be a star." Reba began. "I had talent, I had determination, and I had a dream that looked very specific in my head. But the first real opportunity I got was singing backup for Red Steagall. Not exactly what I'd pictured for myself." "What did you do?" "I took the job," Reba said simply. "And you know what I learned? I learned how to work with other musicians, how to blend my voice, how to be professional and reliable. I learned the business side of music, made connections, and figured out what kind of artist I wanted to be. None of that would have happened if I'd held out for some perfect opportunity that matched my original vision." She paused, sipping her coffee. "Your dream isn't dying, Emily. It's evolving. And sometimes, evolution is exactly what we need to actually achieve what we're meant to." "How did you know?" Emily asked. "When you took that first job, how did you know it was the right move?" "I didn't," Reba admitted. "I was terrified. But I trusted my gut. And I trusted that if I worked hard and stayed true to my music, good things would follow. And they did. Just not on the timeline or in the way I'd expected." Emily was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Tell me honestly, do you think I'm good enough to do this? To tour with you? To perform at that level consistently?" Reba set down her coffee cup and looked Emily directly in the eyes. "I think you're more than good enough. I think you're exactly what I need. And I think this partnership will make both of us better. But more importantly, I think you know that too. You're just afraid to believe it." "Maybe," Emily conceded. "So here's what I'm going to tell you," Reba said. "Whatever you decide, I'll support it. If you turn down the contract, I'll understand. You have to do what's right for you. But if you say yes, I promise you this. I will do everything in my power to help you grow as an artist. I'll teach you everything I know. I'll open every door I can. And I'll support your solo career as much as my own. Because that's what mentorship is. And you deserve that kind of support." Emily felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "Why?" she asked. "Why are you doing all this for me?" "Because someone did it for me when I was starting out," Reba said simply. "And because when I see you, I see the kind of artist country music needs. Someone who's authentic, talented, and willing to work hard. I want to invest in that. I want to help you succeed." They talked for another hour, Reba answering all of Emily's questions about touring, about balancing different aspects of a music career, about staying true to yourself while working in a commercial industry. By the time Emily left, she knew what she was going to do. That night, Emily sat at her tiny kitchen table with Jessica, the contract spread out in front of them. "So?" Jessica asked. "What are you thinking?" Emily picked up a pen, her hand steady for the first time in days. "I'm thinking my dad's right. Some risks are worth taking." She signed her name at the bottom of the contract, then sat back and stared at her signature. "Holy shit," Jessica breathed. "You're really doing this?" "I'm really doing this," Emily confirmed. And despite the lingering uncertainty, she felt a smile spreading across her face. The next morning, Emily scanned the signed contract and emailed it to Patricia. Within an hour, her phone rang. "Welcome to the team," Patricia said warmly. "We're going to do great things together, Emily. I can feel it." They spent the next hour going over logistics. Rehearsals would start in January, with the first tour dates beginning in March. Emily would need to find a better apartment, something she could actually afford now, and start preparing for months on the road. "There's one more thing," Patricia said as they were wrapping up. "We're planning to record some new material before the tour starts. Reba wants to do an EP, maybe 5 or 6 songs, and she'd like you to co-write some of them. Are you interested?" Emily's heart leapt. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. Reba believes in your songwriting, and honestly, so do I. After hearing your stuff, I think you two could create something really special together." After they hung up, Emily sat in stunned silence for a moment. Then she opened her laptop and pulled up the folder where she kept all her original songs. The ones she'd written over the past 4 years, the ones that had been rejected by label after label. Maybe they hadn't been rejected because they weren't good enough. Maybe they'd just been waiting for the right time, the right collaboration, the right partner. She opened a new document and started writing. Over the next few weeks, Emily's life transformed. She found a new apartment closer to Reba's house in Franklin. A small but charming one-bedroom that was light years better than the cramped space she'd shared with Jessica. She could actually afford furniture now, and she set up a corner as a proper writing space with her guitar and keyboard. She and Reba started meeting regularly to write, and Emily discovered that collaborating with someone else brought out different aspects of her creativity. Reba had a knack for structure and commercial appeal, while Emily brought raw emotion and unexpected melodies. Together, they created songs that were both accessible and authentic. The first song they finished was called "Second Chances." It was about late career comebacks, about proving you still had something to offer, but also about being brave enough to start over when your first attempt doesn't work out. It was both of their stories, woven together. "This is it," Reba said after they'd recorded a rough demo. "This is the single." "You think so?" Emily asked nervously. "I know so," Reba said with certainty. "And I want it to be a duet. Equal billing. Reba McEntire featuring Emily Patterson." Emily stared at her. "Reba, I'm nobody. That's going to hurt the song's chances." "You're not nobody," Reba said firmly. "Not anymore. And this song is about both of us, so we're going to sing it together. Trust me on this." They recorded "Second Chances" in a professional studio in early January with full production and James Whitmore producing. The session was long and demanding, with both of them pushing for perfection. But when they finally nailed the take, everyone in the studio knew they had something special. Patricia played it for several radio programmers, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. "It's fresh," one told her, "classic country sound but with something new." And that younger vocalist, who is she? I want to hear more. The single was scheduled to release in February, 2 weeks before their first tour date. Patricia orchestrated a marketing campaign that positioned it as both a comeback for Reba and a breakthrough for Emily. 2 generations of country music, one powerful message. Meanwhile, Emily was learning what it meant to be a professional touring musician. There were rehearsals with the full band, vocal coaching sessions with Dr. Harrison, meetings about stage design and set lists. It was exhausting and exhilarating, and Emily had never been happier. She'd also started releasing her own music on streaming platforms, just simple recordings of her voice and guitar. Nothing fancy, but the songs were honest and personal, and they were starting to find an audience. People who'd seen her at the Opry, who'd been moved by second chances, were seeking out her solo work. Her follower count on social media was growing daily. Music blogs were writing about her. She'd even gotten a call from a label, one of the ones that had rejected her months ago, asking if she'd be interested in a meeting. "What did you tell them?" Jessica asked when Emily shared the news over coffee. "I said I'd think about it," Emily replied. "But honestly, I'm not sure I want a traditional label deal anymore. I'm learning that there are other ways to build a career." "Look at you," Jessica said proudly. "All grown up and making smart business decisions." Emily laughed. "I'm learning from the best." The week before Second Chances was set to release, Emily's phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Emily Patterson? This is Michael Chen from Rolling Stone Country. I'm doing a feature on Reba McEntire's career resurgence and the power of musical collaboration. Would you be interested in being interviewed?" Rolling Stone. Emily had to sit down. "Yes," she managed. "Yes, I'd be very interested." The interview happened 2 days later at a cafe in downtown Nashville. Michael was in his 30s, sharp-eyed and perceptive, and he asked thoughtful questions about Emily's background, her struggles in the music industry, and how working with Reba had changed her perspective. "There's a narrative building," Michael said at one point, "about you being discovered by Reba. How do you feel about that?" Emily considered the question carefully. "I think discovered isn't quite right," she said finally. "I was already here, already working, already good at what I do. Reba didn't discover me. She gave me an opportunity to be seen. And that's different. That's about recognition rather than creation." Michael nodded, typing quickly. "That's a good distinction. Do you worry about being seen as just Reba's protege rather than an artist in your own right?" "Of course," Emily admitted. "That's a legitimate concern. But I'm choosing to see this as a launching pad rather than a limitation. I get to learn from one of the best while also building my own career. Not everyone gets that chance." The article came out the day Second Chances was released, and it was more than Emily could have hoped for. Michael had positioned her as a talented artist, navigating the changing landscape of country music, with Reba as a mentor who understood the importance of lifting up the next generation. The song itself was an immediate hit. It climbed the country charts faster than anyone expected, getting significant radio play and streaming numbers. The music video, which showed Reba and Emily performing together, intercut with footage of their rehearsals and songwriting sessions, went viral. Emily's phone was constantly buzzing with messages. Her parents called, crying happy tears. Friends from college reached out to congratulate her. Even some of the labels that had rejected her sent emails asking if they could revisit the conversation. But the message that meant the most came from Reba. "We did it, kid. This is just the beginning." The tour kicked off in March at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, a hometown show that felt both terrifying and perfect. Emily stood backstage in her dressing room, now wearing the stage outfit they'd chosen together. A vintage-inspired dress in deep red that caught the light beautifully. Her hair was styled in loose waves, her makeup professional but still distinctly her. She could hear the crowd filing in, the excited buzz of conversation, the anticipation building. This wasn't the Grand Ole Opry, but it felt just as significant. This was the start of something new. There was a knock on her door. Reba stood there, dressed in black with silver accents, looking every inch the legend she was. "You ready?" Reba asked. "I think so," Emily said. "Are you?" Reba smiled. "More ready than I've been in years. Come on, let's do this." They walked to the wings together, where James was doing final sound checks and Patricia was coordinating with the venue staff. The band was already on stage, warming up, and Emily could see Brian tuning his guitar while Kevin adjusted his drum kit. The house lights dimmed. The crowd noise changed from conversation to anticipation. And then they were walking out onto the Ryman stage together, met by thunderous applause. Reba took the mic first. "Nashville," she said, her voice warm and genuine. "It's good to be home, and it's good to be here with someone very special. Many of you first met Emily Patterson at the Grand Ole Opry, but over the next few months, you're going to get to know her even better. Trust me when I say you're witnessing the start of something incredible." The show was everything Emily had hoped for and more. They opened with Second Chances, the crowd singing along to a song that had only been out for a few weeks. They performed Reba's classics, Fancy, Consider Me Gone, Is There Life Out There, with Emily's harmonies adding new depth to familiar songs. But the highlight for Emily was when Reba handed her the spotlight for 3 songs in the middle of the set. "Emily's going to share some of her original work," Reba announced. "And I want you to listen, really listen, because this is the future of country music." Emily stepped up to her microphone, her acoustic guitar in her hands, and looked out at the crowd. 4 months ago, she'd been serving tables and contemplating giving up on music entirely. Now she was standing on the Ryman stage, about to perform her own songs for an audience that was actually listening. She played Borrowed Time, the song James had remembered from her showcase. She played a new one called Kitchen Table Dreams, about her years struggling in Nashville. And she finished with Finding Home, a song she'd written just weeks ago about choosing your own path, even when it's scary. The audience response was incredible. Respectful silence during the songs, enthusiastic applause afterward. Emily saw people wiping tears, pulling out their phones to record, leaning forward to catch every word. When she finished and Reba came back on stage, there was a moment where they just looked at each other and smiled. They'd done it. They were actually doing it. The rest of the show flew by. They closed with Still Here, the song that had started everything, and Emily felt the same emotional weight she'd felt at the Opry. But this time, it was mixed with confidence and joy. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were thriving. After the show, Emily found her parents waiting in the green room. Her mother hugged her fiercely, and her father, stoic Robert Patterson, had tears in his eyes. "I'm so proud of you," he said gruffly. "So damn proud." The tour continued through the spring and into summer, each show building on the success of the last. They played theaters and small arenas across the country, places where audiences came to listen rather than party, where the focus was on the music and the stories behind it. Emily watched Reba night after night, learning not just about performing, but about connecting with an audience, about professionalism, about maintaining your voice and your energy across weeks of constant shows. She learned how to handle difficult venue staff, exhausting travel schedules, and the pressure of performing at a high level consistently. But she also learned about friendship. Between shows, She and Reba would often sit together on the tour bus, sharing stories and writing songs and talking about the industry. Reba was generous with her wisdom, never condescending, always treating Emily as an equal, even though their experience levels were vastly different. "You remind me so much of myself at your age," Reba said one night as they crossed state lines somewhere in the Midwest. "So hungry to prove yourself, so afraid of failing. But Emily, you need to learn something I wish I'd learned earlier. You've already made it. Everything from here is just bonus." "It doesn't feel like I've made it," Emily admitted. "I still have all these goals, all these things I want to accomplish." "Having goals is good," Reba said. "But don't let them blind you to what you're achieving right now. You're on tour with a full band, performing your music for thousands of people, making a living doing what you love. That's success, honey. That's what we all dream of." By July, Second Chances had become a top 10 country hit, and Emily's solo streaming numbers were climbing steadily. Labels were still reaching out, offering deals, but Emily had learned to be patient. She was building her career on solid ground now, not desperate for any opportunity that came along. The tour was scheduled to wrap up in August with a final show in Oklahoma, Reba's home state, at a venue outside Oklahoma City. It felt fitting, bringing everything full circle to where Reba's journey had begun. The night before that final show, Emily and Reba sat on the tour bus, looking through photos from the past 6 months. There were shots of them on stage, backstage, in various cities across America, pictures of the band, of fans, of moments both planned and spontaneous. "I'm going to miss this," Emily said quietly. "This tour, this routine. I know we'll work together again, but it won't be quite the same." "No, it won't," Reba agreed. "But Emily, this tour was never meant to last forever. It was meant to launch you, to give you the foundation you needed. And it did that." "What happens now?" Emily asked. Reba smiled. "Now you decide what comes next. Record your own album, book your own tour, build your own career. I'll be here to support you, always. But it's time for you to step fully into your own spotlight." "I'm scared," Emily admitted. "Good," Reba said. "Fear means you're about to do something important. Just don't let it stop you." The final show in Oklahoma was bittersweet. The venue was packed with people who'd been following Reba since her early days, mixed with younger fans who'd discovered her through Second Chances and the tour. The energy was electric, but also emotional. Everyone knew this was an ending. They performed their full set, with Emily getting an extended solo section that had expanded as the tour progressed. She now played 5 of her original songs, and the audience knew every word, singing along with passion and enthusiasm. When they reached Still Here, the song that had brought them together, both Emily and Reba were fighting tears. The audience sang with them, thousands of voices joining together in a declaration of persistence and presence. After the final notes faded, and they took their bows, Reba brought Emily to center stage. "This woman," Reba said to the crowd, her arm around Emily's shoulders, "came into my life when I needed her most. When I was doubting myself, doubting whether I still had anything to offer. And she reminded me that music isn't about age or trends or what's commercial. It's about connection, about truth, about sharing your heart with people who need to hear it." She turned to Emily. "You gave me my confidence back. You made me remember why I fell in love with country music in the first place. And now I'm going to return the favor." Emily looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" Reba smiled. "Patricia's been in negotiations for the past month. We didn't want to tell you until it was final, but..." She pulled out her phone and pulled up an email, showing it to Emily. It was from a record label, not one of the big Nashville corporations. but an independent label known for supporting authentic artists. The subject line read, "Deal finalized, Emily Patterson." Emily read quickly, her heart pounding. They were offering her a 2-album deal with creative control over her music, a solid advance, and support for touring. It was everything she'd dreamed of when she first came to Nashville. "We recommended you," Reba said. "Patricia and I both. We told them you were the real deal, someone worth investing in." And they agreed. Emily couldn't speak. She just hugged Reba tightly, tears streaming down her face, while the audience cheered without fully understanding what was happening. "Thank you," she finally managed to whisper, "for everything." "You earned this," Reba whispered back. "Every bit of it. Now, go out there and show them what you can do." The celebration after the show lasted until the early hours of the morning. The whole tour crew was there. Musicians, techs, management, all sharing stories and toasting to a successful run. Emily found herself surrounded by people who'd become family over the past 6 months, and she realized how much she'd grown. She'd come to Nashville 4 years ago as a naive college graduate with a guitar and a dream. She'd struggled, failed, doubted herself, and nearly given up. But she'd persevered, kept showing up, kept improving, kept believing, even when belief was hard. And now, finally, she was getting her chance. Around 2 a.m., as the party was winding down, Emily stepped outside for some fresh air. The Oklahoma night was warm and clear, stars visible despite the distant city lights. She pulled out her phone and called her mother. "Emily?" Linda answered, her voice fuzzy with sleep. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's perfect, Mom," Emily said, her voice choked with emotion. "I just wanted to tell you, I signed a record deal, a real one, with a good label. I'm going to make an album." Her mother's squeal of joy was so loud, Emily had to hold the phone away from her ear. "Oh, baby! Oh, Emily, that's wonderful! Robert! Robert, wake up! Emily got a record deal!" She heard her father's groggy voice in the background, then his sharp intake of breath as he understood what was being said. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," he said, taking the phone from Linda. "So incredibly proud. You did it. You actually did it." "I almost gave up," Emily said, the realization hitting her. "If you hadn't come to that Opry show, if I'd listened to my doubts instead of taking the backup job, I would have missed all of this." "But you didn't," her father said firmly. "You chose to believe in yourself, even when it was hard. That's what makes this special, Em. You earned every bit of this." After she hung up, Emily stood in the Oklahoma night for a long time, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. The rejection letters, the financial struggles, the moments of despair, the chance phone call from James Whitmore, the terrifying decision to sing backup instead of holding out for solo stardom. Every step, even the painful ones, had been necessary. Reba came outside, 2 bottles of water in her hands. She handed one to Emily and stood beside her, both of them looking up at the stars. "You know what the best part of all this is?" Reba said after a moment. "What's that?" "Watching you step into your power. Seeing you go from that nervous girl at the first rehearsal to the confident artist you are now. That's what mentorship is about. Not keeping someone dependent on you, but giving them the tools to fly on their own." "I wouldn't be here without you," Emily said. "Maybe," Reba conceded. "But you'd have gotten here eventually. I just helped speed up the process. Emily, you're talented, hardworking, and genuine. Those qualities would have won out in the end." "Do you think we'll work together again?" Emily asked. "Oh, honey," Reba laughed. "This isn't goodbye. We'll write more songs together, do more shows. But now it'll be as equals, as collaborators, not mentor and student. And that's how it should be." They stood together in comfortable silence for a while longer, until Patricia came looking for them. "There you two are," she said. "Come on, we've got one more toast to make." Back inside, the remaining crew had gathered around, and Patricia raised her glass. "To Reba," she said, "for remembering why she's still one of the greats. To Emily, for having the courage to take a chance. And to all of us, for being part of something that reminded us why we love country music." This tour wasn't just about performances, it was about proving that authenticity still matters, that talent still matters, that real music still has the power to move people. So, here's to us, and to whatever comes next. They all drank, and Emily felt a sense of completion she hadn't expected. This chapter of her life was ending, but a new one was about to begin. 3 months later, Emily was in a recording studio in Nashville, working on her debut album. The label had given her significant creative freedom, and she was using it to create something honest and personal. Songs about her struggles, her growth, her journey from waitress to professional musician. Reba had co-written 2 of the tracks and would guest on one, a duet called Kindred Spirits, about unexpected friendship and mutual respect. But the rest of the album was all Emily, her voice and her vision, finally getting the platform she'd been working toward for so long. James was producing, which felt right. He'd been there from the beginning, had believed in her before anyone else in the industry did. And he was pushing her to take risks, to dig deeper, to create something that would stand out in a crowded marketplace. "You've got something special, Em," he said during a break one afternoon. "Don't play it safe. This album needs to be undeniably you." Emily was taking his advice. The lead single was Borrowed Time, the song that had caught his attention at that showcase years ago. It was melancholic and beautiful, about feeling like you're running out of chances to achieve your dreams. The label had initially wanted something more upbeat, but Emily had fought for it. "This is my story," she told them firmly, "and I think it's a lot of other people's stories too. We need to start with truth, not commercial appeal." They'd agreed, recognizing that Emily's authenticity was her greatest asset. The album was scheduled to release in January. A fresh start to a new year, a statement of intent. Emily had already planned a tour to support it, booking intimate venues where she could really connect with audiences. Reba would join her for a few dates, and they were talking about a possible extended collaboration in the future. But for now, Emily was focused on this album, on pouring everything she'd learned and experienced into these songs. One afternoon, as she was working on vocals for a track called Kitchen Table Dreams, her phone rang. She stepped out of the booth to answer it. "Emily Patterson," she said. "Ms. Patterson, this is Jennifer Walsh from the Country Music Association. I'm calling to inform you that you've been nominated for New Artist of the Year at the CMA Awards." Emily sat down hard on the studio couch. "I'm sorry." "What?" Jennifer laughed kindly. "You heard me right. Your work with Reba McEntire, plus your solo releases, have generated enough attention to earn you a nomination. Congratulations." After the call ended, Emily just sat there, phone in hand, trying to process what she'd just heard. Nominated for a CMA award. Less than a year ago, she'd been seriously considering giving up on music entirely. James poked his head out of the control room. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I just got nominated for New Artist of the Year," Emily said, her voice hollow with shock. James whooped and ran over to hug her. "That's incredible. Em, do you realize what this means?" "I think so," Emily said, still dazed. "But it doesn't seem real." "It's real," James assured her. "And it's deserved. You've worked harder than anyone I know. And now people are noticing. This is your moment, Emily. Enjoy it." She called Reba immediately, and her friend's excited screaming was almost as loud as her mother's had been. "I knew it!" Reba crowed. "I told Patricia you'd be nominated. Oh, honey, this is wonderful!" "You're in the same category," Emily pointed out, having seen the full list of nominees. Reba was up for Female Vocalist of the Year, her first nomination in that category in over 5 years. "Then may the best woman win," Reba said warmly. "Though honestly, Em, just being nominated is the win. Everything else is gravy." The CMA Awards were in November, which gave Emily a few months to finish her album and prepare for what was shaping up to be a career-defining year. She threw herself into the work, determined to prove that the nomination wasn't a fluke. The album came together beautifully. Each track felt authentic and personal. From the melancholic "Borrowed Time" to the hopeful closer, "Finding Home," Emily had poured her heart into every song, every vocal take, every production decision. When they finally finished mixing and mastering in late October, James burned a CD of the complete album and handed it to Emily. "This is it," he said. "This is the album you've been trying to make since you came to Nashville. Listen to it tonight and tell me I'm wrong." Emily drove home and sat in her car in the parking lot of her apartment building, listening to the album from beginning to end. It was strange hearing all these songs together, this chronicle of her journey from desperation to hope, from doubt to confidence. By the final track, she was crying, not from sadness, but from recognition. This was her story, told honestly and beautifully. Whatever happened next, awards, sales, reviews, she'd created something she was proud of, something that mattered. The CMA Awards ceremony arrived in a flurry of preparation and anxiety. Emily had been to plenty of music events before, but this was different. This was the industry's biggest night, with every major artist and executive in attendance. She wore a vintage-inspired gown in emerald green, her hair styled elegantly but simply. Standing on the red carpet, answering questions from entertainment reporters, Emily kept having to pinch herself. This was really happening. Inside the venue, she found her seat, near the front, in a section with other nominees. Reba was a few rows back, and they'd made eye contact and exchanged excited smiles. The show was a blur of performances and presentations. Emily watched established stars accept awards, listened to speeches about the power of country music, and tried to calm her racing heart every time her category got closer. Finally, near the end of the show, it was time for New Artist of the Year. The presenter was a legendary country singer who'd been performing since before Emily was born. "The nominees are," he began, and Emily heard her name alongside 4 other incredibly talented artists. They showed clips of each nominee, and Emily barely recognized herself in the footage from the Grand Ole Opry and the tour with Reba. "And the winner is..." The presenter opened the envelope, and Emily held her breath. "Emily Patterson!" The applause was thunderous. Emily sat frozen for a second, unable to believe what she'd heard. Then people were hugging her. Nominees on either side, people in the rows behind, and she was walking to the stage on shaking legs. She accepted the award, the weight of it solid in her hands, and looked out at the audience of her peers. Reba was on her feet, clapping and crying. Patricia was beside her, beaming. James was somewhere in the back, probably recording everything. "I don't have a prepared speech," Emily said into the microphone, her voice steadier than she felt, "because honestly, I didn't think I'd win. But I want to say thank you to Reba McEntire for taking a chance on me when no one else would, to Patricia Caldwell and James Whitmore for believing in my potential, to my parents for supporting me even when they thought I was crazy, and to everyone who's ever doubted themselves, who's ever felt like giving up. This is for us. Keep going. Keep believing. Your moment will come. She walked off stage to continued applause, and backstage she was immediately surrounded by press and well-wishers. But the moment that mattered most was when Reba found her, pulling her into a fierce hug. "I'm so proud of you," Reba said, tears streaming down her face. "So incredibly proud." "I wouldn't be here without you," Emily said, meaning every word. "Yes, you would," Reba corrected gently. "Maybe not right now, maybe not this way, but you would have gotten here, Emily, because you have what it takes, the talent, the heart, the determination. I just helped you find your way a little faster." The after-party lasted until the early hours of the morning, but Emily slipped out around midnight, needing some quiet to process everything. She found herself driving through Nashville, this city that had broken her heart and healed it, that had tested her and ultimately rewarded her persistence. She passed the Harvest Kitchen, where a few months ago she'd been serving tables and wondering if she'd ever make it. She drove by her old apartment, the cramped space where she'd written so many songs in the darkness. She passed the Bluebird Cafe, where she'd performed for small audiences and big dreams. Finally, she pulled over near the Cumberland River and got out of her car. The CMA award still clutched in her hands. The Nashville skyline glittered in the distance, and Emily thought about the girl who'd arrived in this city 4.5 years ago. So young, so certain that success would come quickly and easily. That girl had been naive about the challenges ahead, but she'd also been right about one thing. Nashville had stories to tell, and she was meant to be one of them. Emily's phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Get home. Everyone's here celebrating. You can't skip your own victory party." She smiled and got back in her car, heading toward her apartment where her friends were waiting. But as she drove, she thought about tomorrow, and next week, and next year. Her album would release in January. She'd tour. She'd write more songs. She'd continue collaborating with Reba. She'd build the career she'd always dreamed of, one authentic choice at a time. The industry would try to change her, to mold her into something more commercial, more palatable. There would be more rejection, more challenges, more moments of doubt. But Emily knew now that she could handle it. She'd survived the worst, the years of struggle, the near surrender, and come out stronger. As she pulled into her apartment complex, she saw the windows of her unit glowing with warm light. Through them, she could see silhouettes of people moving around, laughing, celebrating. Her people, her community, the support system she'd built in this city of dreamers. Emily got out of her car, the November air crisp and cool, and looked up at the sky one more time. The stars were barely visible through Nashville's light pollution, but she knew they were there, constant and true. "Thank you," she whispered to the universe, to luck, to fate, to whatever force had brought her to this moment. "Thank you for not letting me give up." Then she walked inside to celebrate with the people who'd believed in her journey, carrying her CMA award and a heart full of gratitude, ready for whatever came next. The tour bus rolled through the Tennessee countryside, Emily's name emblazoned on the side in bold letters. Inside, she sat with her guitar, working on a new song for her second album. The first had gone platinum, spawning 3 top 20 singles and establishing Emily as a legitimate force in country music. Her phone rang, Reba calling via FaceTime. "Hey," Emily answered, grinning at her friend's face on the screen. "Just wanted to check in before your show tonight," Reba said. "You nervous about headlining the Ryman?" "Terrified," Emily admitted, "but the good kind of terrified." "That's my girl," Reba said warmly. "Listen, I have some news. I'm working on a new album, and I want you to produce it with James. What do you think?" Emily's eyes widened. "You want me to produce your album?" Co-produce, Reba clarified. You've got great instincts, Em, and I trust your vision. Plus, it'll be fun working together again. What do you say? Yes, Emily said immediately. Absolutely yes. They talked for a few more minutes about logistics and schedules, and then Reba said something that made Emily's throat tighten with emotion. You know what I realized the other day? Reba said, when I invited you to sing backup at the Opry, I thought I was doing you a favor. But really, you saved me. You reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. So thank you, Emily, for everything. We saved each other, Emily said softly. That's what makes it special. After they hung up, Emily sat quietly for a moment, reflecting on the past year and a half, the Opry performance that had changed everything, the tour that had taught her so much, the album that had exceeded all expectations, the friendships that had sustained her through it all. Her parents were coming to tonight's show. They came to as many as they could now, Robert Patterson having become his daughter's biggest cheerleader. Jessica would be there too, still her roommate and best friend, despite Emily's newfound success. And somewhere in the audience would be young musicians with their own dreams, their own struggles, watching and hoping that they too might find their way. Emily picked up her guitar again and returned to the song she'd been writing. It was called Full Circle, and it was about journeys that take you exactly where you need to be, even when the path looks nothing like you expected. She played a few chords, adjusted the lyrics, and smiled. This was her life now, writing songs, performing them, connecting with people through music. It had taken longer than she'd hoped, required more sacrifice than she'd anticipated, and looked completely different from her original vision. But it was hers, authentically and undeniably hers, and that made it perfect. Outside the tour bus window, the Tennessee landscape rolled by, hills and farms, small towns and open sky. Somewhere out there, another young musician was struggling with doubt, wondering if they'd ever make it, contemplating whether to give up or keep fighting. Emily hoped they'd keep fighting, because sometimes, when you're about to surrender, that's exactly when the universe sends you the opportunity that changes everything. Sometimes, all you need is one chance, one person who believes in you, one moment of courage to say yes when it would be easier to say no. And sometimes, the backup singer becomes the star.